Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to the glory of God and His kingdom. So much to talk about with our first guest. His name is Charles Sam Faddis. He is one of our duty experts on, well, just about everything that's important. I'm going to set the stage for the first part of our conversation with him with a brief commentary of my own. President Trump recently announced that a new company would control TikTok's powerful algorithm inside the United States. Its owners include Larry Ellison's Oracle, a UAE AI company, and, wait for it, the platform's Chinese Communist Party-controlled founder, ByteDance. TikTok's Chinese CEO will serve on its board of directors. How exactly this will work with respect to the CCP's toxic weaponization of TikTok remains to be seen. The continuing involvement of Chinese nationals and the parent company is concerning. So is the fact that TikTok's surveillance, propaganda, and influence operations will persist outside the U.S. on platforms supposedly going to be seamlessly accessible to American users. President Trump credits Chinese dictator Xi Jinping with approving this deal. Probably that's because Xi's sure the CCP will still be able to addict, disinform, manipulate, and mobilize young Americans and profit handsomely in the process. Well, those are some of my thoughts on the matter. For more, visit X, where you'll find me at Frank Gaffney. Also at usfuture.org, the website of the Institute for the American Future, which in part makes this program possible, and I hope you'll consider donating to usfuture.org. Let's turn to Sam Faddis for his insights into, first of all, is the Chinese Communists' weaponization of TikTok a thing? And might it be possible that they will have engineered this arrangement to enable them in one way or another to continue doing just that? Sam, welcome back to Securing America. It's great to have you with us, my friend.
Always great, Frank. Thank you. Is the weaponization a real thing? Absolutely. Look, and you know, to simplify this, and in the interest of time, this exists on two levels. One is, obviously, they use it to pump out propaganda. They use it to support their efforts to influence Americans and manipulate their thinking. Secondly, it collects information. I mean, there are all kinds of things that have been well documented about TikTok that have no conceivable commercial application. It has a keylogger, which records every stroke on your computer once you put the thing on there. It is an intelligence collection device. So, look, we will see how this deal works. I'm skeptical that this fixes the problem.
I must say. Sam, you have in your storied career been an undercover operative in a lot of dangerous places. As I recall, Afghanistan and Pakistan were among them. There's a parallel situation to one that I know you have bemoaned, as have I, that involved the surrender with our abject abandoning of Afghanistan under the Biden administration of a critically important strategic facility known as Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. I have a unsettled feeling of deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra put it, with respect to an island far removed from there, but very, very important to American power projection throughout much of the other side of the world, namely Diego Garcia. The British government seems to be intent on giving it to Mauritius, which is a proxy, I guess you might say, of the Chinese Communist Party, which, as I recall, inherited Bagram when we left. Would this be a good idea, sir, with respect to Diego Garcia, any more than Bagram surrender was?
Yeah, I think we could call this safely a terrible idea. For the record, I spent my time in the Pak-Afghan theater on the Pakistani side of that mythical line that's up there in the mountains. I mean, look, Bagram was a Russian base that they built during their efforts in Afghanistan. And then we turned it into, if you will, the centerpiece of our effort in Afghanistan. We dramatically expanded it, not just building additional buildings, but all sorts of facilities and lengthening runways, which is critical, right? Because the bigger runways mean certain types of aircraft that couldn't fly into the smaller facility could now. We turned this into not just a facility with implications for Afghanistan, but a facility from which you could project power all over Central Asia and South Asia. And then making no effort to destroy anything, damage anything, render anything inoperable. We handed it over to the Taliban, who have now given it to the Chinese. And that has been the case now for, at least a couple of years, 3. So the Chinese now have access to and operate out of this facility that allows them to project power. So Diego Garcia is an island out in the Indian Ocean. Most people probably haven't heard of it, but it has served this kind of purpose, power projection, force projection for us for decades now. And this kind of thing is absolutely critical because, again, it's not about an airstrip or it's about pre-positioning fuel. It's about pre-positioning weapons, munitions, equipment, a heck of a lot closer to conflict areas than the East Coast or West Coast of the United States. And from there, aircraft that can fly thousands of miles and be refueled in the air can project power literally up into Iran and so forth. So this is an absolutely crucial facility. And now, if you hand it over to Mauritius, you might as well just have signed it over to Xi Jinping, right? So you're talking about handing this facility and all of that capability to the Communist Chinese. It is it's a place most folks have never heard of, but of immense strategic significance.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, I guess, that it would be a strategic victory for the Chinese Communist Party of the first order if, as with Bagram, they were not only able to deny us the use of this facility, but begin, as you said, projecting power from it as well. Sam, I don't know what to say except that we are looking at another example, it seems, of our so-called allies doing us wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, Five Eyes has been an institution for a long time. At least 3, and arguably 4 of those sets of eyes are now in enemy hands. Canada, Australia, Britain. They're all busily making strategic partnerships, it seems, with our mortal enemy and theirs, I would think, the Chinese Communist Party. What do you make of this? What's the future of Five Eyes, if anything?
Yeah, deeply problematic, right? I mean, you can't just set up these institutions and then say, this is now a fixture, and irrespective of results and reality, we're going to continue to be part of this. I mean, you would have to be looking at, let's start with the Brits, who are really the centerpiece of the whole thing from our perspective. You got to really look at their foreign policy, their internal policy, so forth at this point and think, does this continue to make sense? And even if it continues to make sense, are we really going to continue to share within Five Eyes? I mean, the basic idea of Five Eyes is essentially, it's an open book. Everybody's, almost sharing everything. That's the idea. Are we really comfortable with that anymore? I don't know. I would hope somebody's thinking about it.
Sam, one of the other attributes of this Keir Starmer government in Britain is that it is allowing the Chinese to build a massive embassy, apparently in very close proximity to one of the most sensitive cable networks in the United Kingdom, through which pass, among other things, intelligence. Bad idea. Sam, we have to take a short break. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned.
radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted,
Seditious conspiracy.
but behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a real voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
We're back with the great Sam Faddis, a man who has served his country in the uniform of the United States Army, without a uniform, as an undercover operative of the Central Intelligence Agency for some 2 decades. He's also been an assistant attorney general out in Washington State, a place that is alive with challenges to our national interest and security. We want to talk with you now, Sam, a bit about some of what's going on here inside the United States. Maybe before we get to Washington State, we could talk a bit about Minnesota and specifically the latest developments with respect to what you have described, I think correctly, as a color revolution there. Remind us what that term means and why this would qualify.
Well, I mean, put simply, what we're talking about is coming up with a cause or an issue around which you're building popular momentum, and the goal is revolution. It is not reform. It is not at the addressing of some specific concern. The point is, you've grabbed a hold of this and you're using it as a pretext for a much bigger agenda. And if you take a look at the groups that are aligned here with against ICE, you can see all the usual suspects that are dedicated to overthrowing the republic.
Now, ICE, of course, stands for Immigration Customs Enforcement. It has been widely defamed in both, places like Minneapolis and other parts of the country into which President Trump has inserted them in numbers to try to contend with this problem of illegal immigrants being here and being sent packing is his desire. And lest we forget, that is what he got a mandate to do from the American people. I think there's no question about that. But Sam, you've written recently in your wonderful online resource and magazine, which people can find at andmagazine.substack.com, and I strongly encourage you to do so, about an outfit called ICE Watch. that would seem to be part of this color revolution. Talk about it. Talk about how it fits into the larger enterprise and what they're about.
Right. So ICE Watch exists in various forms nationwide. Right. Slightly different variations on the name, but it is a nationwide organization. Its cutting edge is active in Minnesota and within Minnesota in Minneapolis. I mean, to the extent that when you read the publications and the communications going out on their side, as I do every day, it is their operations in Minneapolis are being provided as the template, literally, for how everybody nationwide should be operating. So this is really the cutting edge of things in all respects. And, the press, the usual mainstream press, does an absolutely horrifying job through a combination of ignorance and, well, their own political bent of describing this. So they continue to use terms referring to these people that are involved with ICE Watch as protesters, suggesting that this is a First Amendment issue and it's all about free speech. Okay, which I'm all for. That has nothing to do with what ICE Watch does. I mean, in Minneapolis specifically, there is a federal facility out of which ICE operates, a primary facility. So ICE Watch maintains 24/7 surveillance of this facility, by which I mean they literally have people in place overlooking all routes in and out of this building, and 24/7 they are recording people coming in and out of the building, and they are calling out ICE as they move. Over a network, secure networks inside of Minneapolis. So they are calling out. This is a very sophisticated, having conducted some significant surveillance and worked out from under it, this is surveillance on a scale that, heck, the FBI couldn't do this to the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. on this scale. I can guarantee you that. We're talking, by their own count, ICE Watch has 4,000 to 5,000 people involved in this effort. They conduct 24/7.
This is just in Minneapolis?
Just in Minneapolis. Wow. They conduct 24/7 surveillance. They call out ICE vehicles when they move, and they maintain very comprehensive databases of ICE vehicles, license plate numbers, descriptions, which may include data they're getting out of state DMV records. That seems a possibility at this point, given some of the information they have. And then they have the whole city broken down into sectors, and they have teams dedicated to each sector. So if you're an ICE group, a unit that moves, you're called out from the second you leave the federal building, and a team is vectored in to follow you and then obstruct your activities. So they are not simply showing up, taking pictures, recording things, video. They are trained in what they call de-arresting, which means physically fighting with ICE officers and preventing them from performing their functions, ramming vehicles, blocking vehicles, smashing windows. So these are teams, all of this on a massive scale, really organized, and clear purpose here, which is to prevent federal law enforcement from performing its function. All of this, by the way,
Sam,
is
if I could
a
just
felony.
ask a basic question, sir. All of that sounds illegal to me, especially the physical violence against police officers or their equipment, no?
It's all illegal, and as we pointed out in And this week, look, it's not just if you're breaking federal law, and all of these are felonies, punishable by up to 20 years in prison. And if you are part of a conspiracy to do that, you are punishable also to the same extent. Meaning, if you're the guy who's calling out the ICE vehicles to provide that information to a system so they can vector folks in to physically attack these officers, you yourself have committed a felony. And if you're providing the computers, paying the gas money, any part of this is a conspiracy, and all of these people ought to be in jail, which is essentially our point. Why don't wait until these guys Don't wait until the poor Border Patrol guy is wrestling with somebody on the ground trying to take away his gun. Shut down the entire operation and put all of these people in jail and confiscate their computers, their phones, their money, and everything else. Same as you would do to the mob. You would not attack this one guy at a time. You would take it out from the top.
Okay, well, let's explore pieces of this, Sam, because there's so much to unpack here.
Right.
We've had, regrettably, in the circumstances you've just talked about, two individuals, Americans, who have been killed by ICE personnel. The first one seems to have been pretty clearly by an officer who felt his life was imperiled by some woman who was going to drive a car over him.
Right.
In the other case, it seems as though things got very out of hand, and indefensibly, the ICE officers killed a man on the ground, pretty much under constraint. What that's translated into, Sam, as you know, is not only not arresting these people, not only not putting them in prison, but now even having Tom Homan, the guy who has been the leading edge of this whole operation, trying to, it seems, make amends, or at least, seriously reduce the level of acrimony that's taking place at the moment. We have to take a break, as I said, but I want to get your thoughts on what the likelihood is that such responses by the federal government now will be both, obviously, for the morale of the men and women who are on the line out there in ICE uniforms, but also for the bad guys, ICE Watch and its friends. Let's get into all of that and more with Sam Faddis on the other side of this break. Please stay tuned.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted,
seditious conspiracy.
but behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Now is the moment to put your brand in front of an engaged, loyal audience through Real America's Voice. When you advertise on Real America's Voice, you're not just running an ad, you're partnering with trusted voices like Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and other influential hosts. Backed by millions of monthly listeners.
What's happening? Because of a real voice, man. I watch it all the time.
Real America's Voice rocks.
Sam Faddis is in the house. Praise the Lord. We are talking about a matter of tremendous importance with a guy who knows a thing or two about color revolutions, having worked the problem out in the field as an undercover operative in the Central Intelligence Agency. He's talking about something very much at home, however. What is happening notably, but not exclusively, in Minneapolis. And Sam, I do want to touch on your former native state of Washington before we're done, if we can. But staying with Minneapolis, staying with this ongoing critical confrontation between ICE personnel tasked with trying to apprehend and remove dangerous illegal aliens who are now being aided and abetted, including through felonious activities, according to your estimation, by something called ICE Watch and its allies. So pick up the story here. Tom Homan's been dispatched to try to manage this situation. Yesterday, as we speak, he was trying to temper the tensions. What does all of this mean, as you see it, for the mission that ICE has and for its enemies and ours?
Well, we have to understand it from the looking at the mindset of the people who run ICE Watch, fund ICE Watch, who are part of this revolution. This kind of reaction is precisely what they want. Now, that's not me. I've looked at the video of the most recent shooting. Like a lot of Americans, I have questions about whether in fact the shooting of that individual was legally justified. I'll leave that to the investigation to determine. That he needed to be arrested, locked up, convicted, etc., I think is clear. Whether the shooting was justified or not remains to be seen. This kind of thing, in my estimation, is inevitable when we allow these groups to operate, which is why I'm so focused on the idea of taking them down from the top. If you leave guys out in the street being harassed, assaulted, attacked from all directions, often surrounded by crowds, and expect in all circumstances they are going to make split-second decisions that are absolutely correct, that you can then second-guess to your heart's content later on. I mean, you're asking for a level of perfection that is unobtainable. In other words, this kind of thing is inevitable, and the folks who are pouring fuel on the fire, this is what they want, because obviously Americans are not comfortable with this, and it is likely to produce the backlash that we're already seeing to some extent and make people walk away. So that doesn't mean I think we should be backing off on deportations. It means I think maybe we ought to be looking at this in more of a comprehensive, if you will, whole of government way. What are all the levers that are available? Why do we allow ICE Watch to exist and force our people to work under this? But also, if you're an illegal, why can you have a bank account? Why can you rent an apartment? And why can you still get a job? Why aren't we putting in place those kinds of measures so that a great number of folks would just say, look, it's time for me to go home, rather than we have to try to precisely self-deport, which, by the way, just from a mercenary standpoint, if you will, is a heck of a lot cheaper to the U.S. government to pay for even if we paid for the plane tickets, than it is to pay for the operation to find them. And a heck of a lot less intrusive and in your face. So maybe a smarter approach, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense.
Sensible, Sam. And to the extent that this is not isolated to Minneapolis, say what you can about places like Oregon, and I think in Washington State as well. We've seen some of this. Is this truly now a national threat to our homeland security, or is it in the process of becoming that, do you think?
Well, without question. I mean, look, Washington State is, if you go to the east side in Washington State, you're in Montana, but if you go on the west side of the Cascades, you're in California, and it is every bit as liberal as Minneapolis is, and yes, these efforts are far advanced. But look, it's going on all over the country. I can tell you that the People's Forum, which is Neville Roy Singham's incubator for revolution in the heart of New York City, Neville Roy being the billionaire who works hand in hand with CCP and works out of Shanghai.
That would be,
right?
Again, the Chinese Communist Party.
Neville Roy Singham, who is part of Chinese Communist Party's United Front and sets fires all over the United States from his base in Shanghai, runs an organization in the heart of New York City in Manhattan called the People's Forum, from which they spread chaos. They're the guys who were telling the folks occupying Columbia University's campus what to do. Literally, the leaders of the occupation were going every night to People's Forum to get directions. Well, yeah, precisely. And People's Forum right now, along with a variety of other outfits, is every day having meetings and training sessions in Manhattan to create in New York City what is going on in Minneapolis. That is ongoing. That's not speculation, because I read those notices every day. So they're preparing to turn New York City into Minneapolis and set in on fire precisely the same way. And again, my question is, why are we letting them do that?
Well, and I want to ask that, and I want to come back to the new mayor. But Sam, again, I'm speaking to you as a man with a wealth of experience that's relevant to these topics, not least this time that you spent as a prosecutor in Washington State. Is there any doubt in your mind that cases could be brought against Singham and People's Forum and Ice Watch and all of these funding and operational entities on the basis of what has already been done, let alone what they're capable of accomplishing if left to their own devices?
None. Look, Ice Watch, just to grab a hold of one piece. Ice Watch runs training sessions where they teach people how to physically, before they put them on the street to go out and confront ICE, they are teaching them physically how to confront them, down to specific holds and fighting techniques and ways in which to confront and physically assault federal law enforcement officers. And then they provide them with the information and send teams of these people to these locations to fight with law enforcement and prevent them from doing their jobs. Well, the federal statutes are clear. There's no way to describe that and color that doesn't constitute a conspiracy and participation in a felony. So everybody involved in that ought to be in jail, sitting behind bars, which would, to start with, not only take them off the street, but take the fun out of this. It would no longer be something where you get to go have a beer later and talk to your buddies about the cool stuff you did today. You'd now be rotting in a cell. And Singham's funds, why aren't Singham's funds, why does Singham have any funds in the United States? Why aren't they all seized?
Yep, good idea. And I'd say Soros's too.
Yes.
They seem to be up to their eyeballs in a lot of this as well. So, Sam, you could bring the case. The federal authorities certainly should be, it seems to me, in case after case after case of these criminal activities. Which brings me to the possibility that in New York City, if this thing goes the way of these other places, you will have the mayor on the side of those who are wreaking havoc on his city. And I have to say, in all of the work that you do at this wonderful site, And Magazine, and you can find it again, folks, at andmagazine.substack.com, you're reporting on what Mamdani is doing and is putting into place to do is absolutely chilling. And I'd want you just to take the last 2 minutes, if you would, to stitch this together. How would it play out under a Mamdani administration if this stuff happens in New York City, sir?
Well, the way this is going to play out is you're going to have these organizations begin these activities, but the key piece is here that the mayor will already be on board with all of this, because the mayor is a revolutionary communist. He is a Marxist. He is a guy who believes in overthrowing the system. He belongs to a party that says we are a prison nation founded by slavers and racists. That's his party's description, their verbiage, which means you're going to have these actions against ICE, and we will already have a get-out-of-jail-free card from the mayor of New York City in advance of this. So NYPD is not going to be anywhere to be seen. And if anybody who thinks that's too far, look, this already happened a couple of months ago when ICE was attacked by a mob in downtown Manhattan and ultimately driven off the island, had to escape to Jersey through the tunnel, literally, and NYPD stood by and watched, and afterward the police commissioner called ICE and complained about them and said it was they had caused the problem by operating in Manhattan. So we've already seen.
And this was prior to Mamdani becoming the mayor, as I recall. Is that right?
Prior to Mamdani becoming mayor, but that police commissioner is still, she now works for Mamdani, and yes, that was her position.
Sam, this is so disheartening, I have to say. And I think it's still the case that NYPD will be prominently featured on World Hijab Day in Central Park in the next couple of days. That evidently, under the Mamdani regime, is what they think is an appropriate use of the police department. Sam, thank you for this great report. It's chilling, as I say. Come back to us with updates next week, if you would. Godspeed, my friend. We'll be right back, folks. Stay tuned.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with this Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Most people know the biblical story of David, the shepherd boy who fought Goliath and became king. Well, Angel Studios has created a new animated film called David that tells the story of Israel's greatest king.
Followed when I'm looking for the way, when I'm searching for the answer, in the moments I'm afraid. There's a whisper in the wind and a story in the sky, when I'm looking for a lantern to illuminate the night. If you want the secret of freedom and feeling alive, you gotta follow the light. Follow the light.
For those who love great animated classics like The Lion King and Prince of Egypt, David is an awe-inspiring animated musical that depicts David as a spirited boy who fought lions, giants, and even betrayal, depicting how one boy's faith could lead him to be king of Israel. David will be released in theaters just in time for Christmas on December 19th, but your family can get a head start by watching the prequel to the film, Young David, which is streaming exclusively.
Welcome back, and welcome to one of the most important segments of this program each week, and that is because we feature my co-host and dear friend Didi Laugesen, the president of Save the Persecuted Christians, an incredibly important organization that is helping to relieve the suffering of the, by some estimates, 380 million Christians who are being heavily persecuted around the world in a unique way. And I'll leave it to her to talk a little bit about how we do what we do with Save the Persecuted Christians, in particular in the context of what is happening at the moment in a nation afflicted by horrific persecution, namely Nigeria. Didi, it's so good to have you with us. Welcome, and I know we've got a very special guest, but just take a minute to talk a bit about what, in addition to the great work of the members of the coalition who are trying in a kind of, the way I think of it as retail way, alleviate the suffering of our persecuted brothers and sisters in Christ. But what does the coalition do in addition?
Thanks, Frank. You know, as you said, we advocate for those now 388 million severely persecuted Christians around the world. The numbers are just out. The new 2026 World Watch list from Open Doors is just out, and those numbers continue to rise. As you know, Frank, when we started in 2018, those numbers were 215 million, now up to 388 million. And for the vast majority of those Christians being persecuted in the world, Frank, Sharia supremacists and Sharia supremacism is the root cause. You have Islamists that really believe that they are poised to take control of the world, and they are working hard in the United States. So our coalition is working hard to ban Sharia in America, and we are working hard to hold those countries that allow the death penalty for leaving Islam. We're preparing a genocide case against them. So these are very important issues. Our guest today, our very good friend, Judd Saul, with Equipping the Persecuted, works on the ground in Nigeria. And we wanted to bring you, Frank, the update on what's happening there as the U.S.-Nigeria working group on security issues in Nigeria has just gotten underway. But just this week as well, over 170 Christians were taken from a village in Kaduna State, Nigeria, in Kajuru County. And what happened immediately after is what's so telling about the genocide that's happening there. The police commissioner and the county chair came out and said, denied that an attack even took place. And this was a coordinated attack on 3 churches on a Sunday morning. And the very next day, the police commissioner is standing there calling people who are alerting about this attack conflict entrepreneurs and denying the case completely. It did come out. The CAN chairman, the Christian Association of Nigeria, came out and said, no, this did happen. And they were forced to walk back their statements. Our friend Judd has just returned from Nigeria and is here to tell us what's going on the ground there and how the industry of kidnapping for ransom is funding the terrorism that's happening against Christians. And are U.S. officials actually attending to the main issue in the Middle Belt, or are they being distracted elsewhere? Judd, welcome back from Nigeria.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be back. Well, what's happening on the ground in Nigeria is it's business as usual. The kidnappings and the killing of Christians is continuing. Even while we were there were killings and kidnappings, and even more kidnappings in Kajuru after it was 177 that were kidnapped. Even after the fact, more people have been kidnapped in Kajuru. And you have to ask yourself, is on a Sunday in the middle of the afternoon, do you mass kidnap over 170 people in one setting without any government intervention? And then you have, like you said earlier, the police commissioner and the local county chairman calling it a hoax. And then when people were pressing them, this is what happened. People were pressing them saying, no, this is wrong, this is wrong. People were trying to get into the community, and they actually blocked people from getting in. They were blocking people from getting in to look for themselves. And thank God one of our Truth Nigeria guys was able to work his way in and talk to survivors, talk to people that, luckily didn't get kidnapped and avoided it. And they gave him a list of every single person that has been kidnapped. And if you go into the churches, everything's in disarray, everything's knocked over. And you have to ask yourself, how did this happen and why does this happen? Is because, well, the police commissioner and the local county chair are in on it.
So, Frank, the Truth Nigeria has published an article just yesterday.
Just a word on that. Who is Truth Nigeria? What is it, and how does it operate there?
So we created a publication called TruthNigeria.com a few years ago because no one was hearing about what was happening in Nigeria, and you barely heard anything about it in the mainstream press. And so we found citizen journalists and journalists in Nigeria that wanted to get the word out about what's happening in their country. And all the Nigeria publications were rejecting their stories, not publishing their work. And I said, what if we created an entity that you were able to publish your work and let the world know what's going on? So we started Truth Nigeria, and we call it Truth Nigeria for a reason, is because we're not bullied by the Nigerian government on what we can and cannot say.
So in this reporting just yesterday, they say they're asking about $4,000 on average per hostage that are held in these open-air Auschwitz hostage camps throughout the Rijana Forest, and now Truth Nigeria has exposed a couple of other large camps. These are hubs. These are terror hubs that the military knows about. And so they're asking about $800,000, we believe, for these 166 that are still stolen, and then much more than that for the others who have been kidnapped since. So this is how they fund. They make the people pay for their own terror upon their communities.
Yeah. And presumably that's a lot of money in those communities if they can pay.
You have to look at it this way. The average Nigerian makes less than $100 a month.
Wow.
And so they're asking...
Let's come back to this on the other side.
Yeah,
so.
they're
we'll be right back with more. Stay tuned.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shop. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with this Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Most people know the biblical story of David, the shepherd boy who fought Goliath and became king. Well, Angel Studios has created a new animated film called David that tells the story of Israel's greatest king.
Followed when I'm looking for the way, when I'm searching for the answer, in the moments I'm afraid, there's a whisper in the wind, and a story in the sky, when I'm looking for a lantern to illuminate the night. If you want the secret of freedom and feeling alive, you gotta follow the light.
Welcome back. I apologize. I get so caught up in the stories that we are telling here and the horrors associated with them that I sometimes lose track of the time. This is why we pay Dee Dee the big bucks as our co-host. Dee Dee, thank you so much for bringing Judd back. And Judd, thank you for what you do. You are truly an angel, I believe, and the work that your efforts on the ground in Nigeria to protect these populations from what is being done to them, particularly in this area known as the Middle Belt, which is very much, as you know so well, in the crosshairs of these jihadis. And they are jihadis, ladies and gentlemen. These are not just, herdsmen. These are people who are waging jihad against Christians for the purposes of killing them, stealing their stuff, and or driving them out. Is that correct, Judd Saul?
You hit the nail on the head. That's 100% of what's happening. They are hell-bent on turning Nigeria into a caliphate and getting rid of anything that's in the way, especially Christians. And they do it through murder. They do it through kidnapping. They do it through sheer terror. And capturing political offices. Right. Please talk about that, Judd. Yeah, so, once they terrorize a community and terrorize an entire area, if you get rid of the Christian base, you put them into IDP camps, now you have that territory. Then you start taking political control. So it starts with cultural jihad, move in. Then it goes to, once they start getting a base, they start gaining political cover. And then it goes to violent and killing jihad. And then right before you know it, they take over entire states. And Christians have no voice. They are second-class citizens. And you have political officials and security officers, policemen and people in the Army that are actually funding and providing cover for and giving arms to these terrorists, even in exchange for the kidnap victims. They pay this in ransom. So talk a little bit more about how the political officials and the security agents are corrupt and engaged in this. So once you have the political cover, so that's what's happening. The terrorists are getting their weapons from the military. They'll rent them out for a couple of days, go do their attacks, and give their weapons back to the military. In certain instances, there's been political leaders that have given these terrorists new trucks. And just recently, the National Security Advisor, Rabadu, who is a Fulani Muslim, sitting on the working group with the U.S., who's now with the working group with the U.S., has got caught giving a bunch of weapons to Fulani villagers to protect their communities, government weapons, direct to the people, to the Fulani, and these guys are using these weapons to commit terror attacks. But he's still
this is not actually confined to using them to protect their communities. It's used to take others' communities.
Take other communities, yes.
Judd, this is somebody who is, putting your own life on the line to go over there and take stock of all of this. This must be just heartrending, but also, are you able to actually protect Christians under these circumstances? And what can people do to help you who believe this is such a travesty and must stop? And may I just put on that list the President of the United States, who the last time I checked had said this is unacceptable and he will hold the government accountable, and he actually used the military force, did he not, against some of these terrorists?
Well, he did, but we need to, instead of just sending a few missiles, we need to get, some private military contractors on the ground, if not U.S. military, but not work directly with the Nigerian government, but start working with local communities, local community police teams to defend their villages. We're doing everything we can right now, walking up to the legal line to help protect villages and help empower local communities to defend themselves through information, through practical needs like communications, locally sourced bulletproof vests, and training. And we are legally...
What is the line? You're not allowed to arm these villagers.
I'm not allowed to arm, but we're doing everything we can up to that line to help locals be able to defend themselves, and it has worked. But
if the National Security Advisor,
the U.S. government, it would change everything.
Yeah, if the National Security, I want you to finish that thought in just a second, but just to make a fine point. If the National Security Advisor of Nigeria is able to provide arms to these Muslim communities on the grounds that that's for self-defense, why would it not be possible to do the same for Christians?
That's the $1 million question. And that's been the question I've had since I started going to Nigeria. Why are the radical Islamists allowed to run throughout the whole country with AK-47s and RPGs?
Yeah, no, I get that, Judd, but it's a different question. And it just seems to me, especially if this guy is on the working group with American officials, the American officials ought to be demanding that if he's going to arm these other guys, he must arm the Christians as well, and
reciprocity,
with your help and training.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to get through to the government. We've been
to which government? To ours or theirs?
The U.S. government. We're working with the U.S. government and telling them what we know, going every step of the way. But there is a bureaucracy that is dragging their feet on this, and we need action now.
And it's an important
Dee Dee,
point.
talk a little bit about what's coming up this coming week, because it seems to me this is an opportunity to get the United States government fully engaged on this threat to international religious freedom. Speak to the opportunity that's present. You've got a minute to do it.
Next week we'll be at the International Religious Freedom Summit in Washington, D.C. This was born after the ministerials that were hosted at the State Department starting in 2019 and ended with the first term of President Trump. They switched over to an IRF summit format, and we will be engaging with U.S. officials on Nigeria throughout the week. And we could really use people out there just to be writing their members of Congress to let them know that Nigeria matters to them, the Christians there matter.
Well, and especially since President Trump has personally taken an interest in this, and as you say, Judd, it can't be confined to a couple of missile strikes. This is an ongoing problem, and the government of Nigeria itself, comprised of these Fulani jihadists, needs to be held accountable. God bless you both. Come back to us with updates on it all, and good luck this week. The rest of you, I hope, will join us next time. Until then, go forth and multiply.
Hey folks, it's your friend John Rich. I co-founded Old Glory Bank because we heard too many stories about people getting canceled by their bank because they didn't agree with their politics. The government wanted to know where you shopped. If you bought a Bible or you shopped at a sporting goods store, you're probably on a list. We created Old Glory Bank because America needed a bank that would protect their privacy and security. Exercising your constitutional rights is not a criminal activity, and neither is loving your country. At Old Glory Bank, we stand with you.
I'm a J6er. I spent 1,143 days in prison.
About a year in prison.
We were prosecuted, persecuted.
J6ers have been treated like terrorists.
And we need your help.
Stand in the Gap was founded to stand in the gap for J6ers working to rebuild their lives after being incarcerated.
For just $10 or more, you can help these patriots get back on their feet again. Every dollar you give is being matched up to $50,000. Go now to j6support.com and donate today. Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with this Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Most people know the biblical story of David, the shepherd boy who fought Goliath and became king. Well, Angel Studios has created a new animated film called David that tells the story of Israel's greatest king.
Always followed when I'm looking for the way, when I'm searching for the answer. In the moments I'm afraid, there's a whisper in the wind and a story in the sky. When I'm looking for a lantern to illuminate the night. If you want the secret of freedom and feeling